And when you talk about the propaganda and always seeing the repetition, for someone in your position, like what does fighting back look like? That's something that we always talk about on the podcast about fighting back because it's in a situation where like Democrats are doing what they can, in my opinion, but some people might say that they need to do more, or a lot of people are. So what does someone in your position, what does fighting back look like?
Fighting back can look a lot of ways. Some fighting back you'll never see. So I want to express this in full transparency with you all. Like when you sit in a House of Representatives in the state of Georgia, okay? So I'm sitting in a place, we're sitting on grounds that were once burned to ashes, and a city was rebuilt because of the Civil War. I'm sitting on hallowed ground where people grew up, people that I represent grew up in a segregated South. So fighting back can look like strategy. Fighting back can look like, there are certain things that require the Dems vote in the House of Representatives, for example. So if there's a constitutional amendment, for example, that can't pass without the Democratic vote. Or in this session, we had a huge issue called tort reform, which is horrible for our community, by the way. It only passed by one vote. So sometimes fighting back looks like resistance and just not taking it lying down. Now, there's in the House activity, and then there's camera facing presentation, and then there's you and your community. So it is very easy to get lost in the theater of it all, if you will. But what fighting back truly looks like is being able to know what is forthcoming, what's coming down the pipe, rallying your troops, strategizing. How many votes do we need for this? How can we position ourselves via our relationships to stop a vote from coming to the floor? Like the DEI bill did not come to the House floor this session. We were prepared for it if it did. I certainly was. We gave them our lineup of speakers, just like we did last year. I was on that list. Last year was they wanted to dedicate a statue to Clarence Thomas as opposed to dealing with some of the more pertinent issues we wanted to deal with. And we at some point we like, well, we'll bring it on because we'll blow the roof off and walk right out to those cameras. And if that's how you want to carry it, we can carry it like that. So sometimes resistance is stopping bad bills from even coming your way. And I don't think that's something that the public is aware of. They may not know of how many terrible things we've stopped. They may just look at what the news cycle is running, and it may have no insight into our strategic approaches to what we do.
And I would say, yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of things that aren't in the media and things that are happening behind closed doors and the advocating and not even getting it to the bills. Like, I'm so happy that you were able to share that because I think a lot of that comes into lost in translation when it comes to these narratives about the parties and all of these it's miscommunication. And I feel like it's overlooking the process that really takes like the business part of what's really happening behind closed doors. So I'm happy that you shared that.
Yeah, I think that's critical to share. I will also share that your state legislatures are open. They're public. The doors are open. We don't see enough people aside from lobbyists and people who may be particularly impacted by proposed legislation who will come to the ropes and talk to us. But I think it would be beneficial to build track what's coming through the state legislature so that you can see. I always share with people, Mackenzie, that the lower the name is on the ballot, the closer that position is to your daily life. So we tend to focus at the top, and the top is super important. But as you get down, you've got the state legislature that sets the budget for the state. It's how much teachers are going to be paid. It's whether we're going to have an increase. It's HBCU funding at the state level. It's all of these, and it's where the sausage is made. Now, it's not sexy. Most people in Atlanta run for city office. Like nobody really. So I decided to hone in on state number one so that I could have a starting point that gave me a purview of how things work through a broad lens, because I was born and raised in a city that remains the beacon of Black political leadership in the country, and we intend to keep it that way. But in order to be able to serve wherever I may land after I leave here or if I stay here, I didn't study political science in college. I took the class, it changed my life. You know, I've been around politics my entire life, but I needed to learn how are bills proposed? How are they made? How are they stopped? You know, who is who is running it over here? And I learned quickly that the bubble of Atlanta and the bubble of Howard, a beautiful bubble, I might add, gave me this insular perspective on something that was broader for a state like Georgia. Like HBCUs run the city of Atlanta. University of Georgia runs this state.
I'm so glad you're literally kind of dropping the breadcrumbs of just the civil rights movement, Black political leadership, all of that, because as you kind of just spoke to us sitting here, we're Howard University graduates, and we have a privilege that, some everyday people don't have. I'm sure you have a cousin or a friend that you're from Atlanta, so you know how that works.